When you look at the big games in the SEC this week, I thought it was interesting because Kentucky, Georgia, while it is the top game of the weekend, the undefeateds, it's not the most expensive ticket in the SEC this weekend. You could get into the stadium here for $130, but Chad, your Tennessee Vols. Lane Kiffin, his return, he's going to be back there, and it's going to be $150 to get in. Did you ever think, like, I mean, with the Tennessee team that you started out with this season and the way that they've progressed and grown, that would actually be a hotter ticket than right here with the number one team in the country.
One versus 11.
1 versus 11, huge matchup. Everybody across the country is in Athens this weekend, yet they all seemingly would rather go to let's go checker it out.
We had a nice debate about Knoxville versus Athens last night. To answer your question, Jill, no, I did not expect this to be one of the biggest games of the week when this season started. But I'll say this, it's all about supply and demand. And I'm not talking about seating capacity and tickets available. I'm talking about success. The supply on success is overflowing right now at Georgia. So the demand may go down a little bit because the fan base is experiencing it every single week. They may be gearing up for the cocktail party in 2 weeks. They're going to be gearing up for SEC championship game is what they're thinking right now, possible college football playoff. When you have that success, you get used to it. The demand's not as high. In Knoxville, where they've not had that success, the supply success down, suddenly you get a little bit of success. Guess what? Boom, $150 tickets to sit in the nosebleed at Neyland.
Well,
that's the result.
And the fact that Kiffin returns with Ole Miss and the circus is in town. I mean, that you're going to see the show. Over under at 83 points. Last I checked at FanDuel early this morning. I'm considering taking the over after I've been debating the under all week because of the high-powered offense. It's tempo against tempo. It's Kiffin against Heupel. They both scheme open plays very well. Corral against Hendon Hooker. To steal a line from Chad Withrow, the only thing missing in this game is Sweet Tea on the sidelines.
That's right.
And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the up-tempo, high-scoring affair that's going to take place. And the question is, who has the ball last?
You talk about points for Tennessee. 28 points scored in the first quarter in the Vols' last 2 games. They only scored more than 21 points 3 times last season. They found something that works in that offense. Hendon Hooker is looking excellent. He looks more comfortable every week. And, hey, if you saw Arkansas, Ole Miss at a 52-51 game last weekend and we saw what the Vols were able to do, this is going to be a fun one.
Jill, not only that, they surpassed their point total for all of 2020 in the first quarter last week. First quarter of game number 6, they have already well surpassed their 10-game point total from last year. This is a different team. There's a different energy about this team. There is a different quarterback, and that right now is the key. That is the engine that gets them going, what Hendon Hooker's been able to do. Tonight's game is going to feature the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks in America in QBR, and people would be shocked to know the number 1 quarterback in QBR is not the one that's going to be a high first-round pick in Matt Corral. He's number 2. Hendon Hooker is number 1. You're witnessing right now 2 head coaches who are very good quarterback developers. And not just that, Hutton, the play calling ability really of both of these guys in their past. He got a knack for it. We talked to Steve Spurrier on this show. You asked him about head coaches he likes that still calls plays. Josh Heupel's one of those guys.
And he said he needs to win some games.
And I think you either have it or you don't, right? You have that in-game instinct on play calling or you don't. I think Heupel's got it.
Well, it's happened for Heupel. You can see he can do this, calling plays and scheming up well, even in the losses. Because in the Florida loss, there was a 4th down play that you can tell he game planned during the week. The receiver dropped the football. Early in the season, Milton's overthrowing everyone by a mile, but guys are running wide open. And here's what I appreciate about Josh Heupel and why the fans have bought in too. He didn't get to the podium when he was hired, and he hasn't done it since, and preached patience. Because all of the predecessors have done that since Philip Fulmer, patience and rebuilding a program. Fans haven't wanted to hear that, and he hasn't approached it that way. He's taken the group that he had, 71 scholarship players. By the way, they are paper thin at certain positions, and he didn't use that as an excuse. He's on his 2nd quarterback, and he's got a guy that's on fire right now that's as accurate with QBR and overall play as Matt Corral at this point in the season. And it's Heupel that's leading the offense, and everyone's buying in. It's clear he can do that. Now it's about hitting the recruiting trail at Tennessee.
And the recruiting trail now means the transfer portal.
It's a big day for them. It's a big day for unofficial visits on campus today.
It is, and transfer portal is a big part of Tennessee's success this year. Hendon Hooker at quarterback. Look down the list. Javonte Payton, their big play guy, wide receiver.
Yep.
Brandon Turnage, a transfer from Alabama, their third-string nickel. Theo Jackson's hurt. Danico Slaughter's hurt. He goes in the game, and what does he do? He wins SEC Defensive Player of the Week in his first start, and a transfer from Alabama. So you're going to see this with some programs. In the past, I remember Mississippi State years ago would always hit the JUCO market. Kansas State is known for going the JUCO route for players. Will Tennessee and others become one of those programs synonymous with taking transfers and improving their stock the way they've done with some of these guys?
I was speaking to a friend in SEC coaching this week, and I asked him about Heupel. And he said at the beginning he wasn't really sold on him necessarily, didn't know one way or the other. And by this point, he can tell that he's going to be just fine in the SEC. And I asked him about the offense. He goes, it's because he's not afraid to run the football. And Kiffin's not either. Kiffin rotates 3 or 4 solid backs, and they feature a solid ground attack. Heupel also will turn and hand the football off. He's not worried about 400 yards passing and all these play calls that you may see across the country. He's stable in the offense, and he runs his offense with the players that he has.